And we're back. The United Nations General Assembly brought to a total new low. Now look, I know this guy. He's the ambassador of Antigua and Barbuda. Did you know that John Ash, as president of the General Assembly, took bribes, bags of cash inside the building? This gentleman was sent to try to rehabilitate the image of Antigua and Barbuda, which was an absolute criminal theft. John Ash, may he rest in peace. General Assembly at its finest.
Sir?
Yes.
I just need you to get on the sidewalk.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you. Looking right up here.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate
Sure.
it.
It's a great organization. Steals money, rapes children in the CAR. I understand it's not your fault to protect it, but it's a disgusting piece of work. Totally disgusting. All right. So now you've seen it. You've seen Mr. John Ash. You've seen John Ash. A total. Yeah. This is great. You've seen John Ash. People don't even know. John Ash, as president of the General Assembly, demanded $20,000 in cash in a bag. And you know who didn't ask a single question? Mr. Al Jazeera, Mr. Bribe Giver, Sleaze Hound. There's also a woman from Chinese state media. There he goes. He's going all the way around. He's going in. The big moment, the big reveal, bribe takers united. He's going into the United Nations. Now the question is, this year it's going to be harder to get cash. That's my belief. That's my understanding. Absolutely corrupt. And these guys, they don't care. It's overtime for nothing because there's nobody here. Because the United Nations is a dead and dying organization run by bribe-taking, rape-defending sleaze hounds like Antonio Guterres.
The inner-city press has to be credentialed.
Lee's status remains unchanged.
Okay, here we are. It's UN General Assembly 2020. There's not even any protesters. The UN, it's not just coronavirus. The UN is being killed by Antonio Guterres, the most corrupt, sleazy, and censoring Secretary General ever. As I prepared to launch this Periscope, his chief of staff, Maria Luisa Viotti, former permanent representative of Brazil, went walking by. Said to her, "I'm still banned. Your name will go down as a censor, a thief of public money." But I digress. Today at 9, probably a bit later, the quote General Assembly of the Parliament of Man kicks off. Everything by tape, of course. Just Big Tony inside trying to solicit bribes. Maybe he'll go online. Maybe he'll get caught and indicted, as well he should. Antonio Guterres, totally corrupt. Totally corrupt. Now, let me count the ways. It's not just the Chinese bribes. It's the covering up of child sex abuse by peacekeepers. It's really true. Go to the UN's website, Church for Conduct and Discipline. Check the 12 child rape this summer by the UN and known that Antonio Guterres didn't provide a single bit of additional, if asked, information about a single one of them. Not one. Because he's covering them up. Did you know that down in the Southern District of New York courthouse, to which I'm headed, Karim al-Qurani, a UN staffer in Iraq, was indicted and arrested and remains detained. For drugging and raping women in Iraq while working for the UN. Now look at this. Look. Ship of fools indeed. No heads of state, permanent representatives saying, I have the honor to introduce the pre-recorded statement of my leader. In many cases, a dictator. Now look, a press island as if there were something inside. These are ghoulish. They would do this in the middle of nowhere. Look at all the money being spent for nothing. Everything's on video. There's nothing happening inside except a bunch of ambassadors introducing films. Look, let's look at Al Jazeera, okay? This guy is flown around with the money of Qatari sheikhs to Davos to collude with Stefan Dujarric to get other media thrown out. He works for bloodthirsty. Did you know that in Qatar, if you write a poem against the emirs, you go to jail? Did you know that they crept into New York to a mansion? Human slaves from Philippines? And when they complained, they were flown out and thrown in jail in Doha? Did you know? And yet, they're asking human rights questions in front of the UN under a white tent. This truly is a fraud. Truly. Now, inner city press covered the UN. Many GAs, at least 10, 9. until Antonio Guterres arrived. And in order to conceal his Chinese bribes, had inner-city press thrown out first from that door. It's true. It's true. I'm actually not. I've reinvented myself covering the courthouse. I'm doing quite well. And I have news, but I refuse to not cover the UN. I refuse to give... What they wanted is to have nobody but a bunch of brain-dead, bought-off sleazeballs asking the questions, so that Antonio Guterres can continue to conceal his links to Chinese bribers, continue to conceal child sexual abuse by UN peacekeepers. Then you say, what's his personal motive? Well, not just sleaze. Absolute sleaze. Antonio Guterres wants to go on vacation to Lisbon. I think anyone that looks at it objectively will see that Antonio Guterres didn't solve a single diplomatic problem in his 4 years at the United Nations. Yesterday, some British NGO rose to his defense and said, well, because he was selected through the first open process, canned statements, money from Angola, from the Dos Santos. Look, Al Jazeera is doing some investigative journalism. Maybe coming over to have a cruller, some baby hands. Disgusting. Look at this. And all for what? It's not, there are no leaders inside. There's a video screen. This would be like setting up a stakeout and a press island. Oh, wait, we have the lady from BBC. Now, I was once on a trip when I first, relatively early in my UN reporting career, in Sri Lanka. Because I covered Sri Lanka. I actually covered the genocide against the Tamils. And Ban Ki-moon, who was a terrible, terrible Secretary General, but nowhere near as bad as Guterres, went there. And I was allowed to go along, and I went along. And I quoted what was said on the plane by Mr. John Holmes, a British muckety-muck. He said, yeah, I said to him, what about, I said, I got CC'd on a lot of stuff the Tamils are sending you about the UN's failure in Sri Lanka. And he said, I just delete them. So I reported it, because it was on the record. He was giving statistics. There was nothing off the record about it. And the next day, the lady from BBC in a car in Colombo said, you ruin it for all of us. Now he won't talk to us anymore, because she viewed it as her business to cover up for a British official. Yes, it's true. So there you have it. This is the United Nations. Oh wait, it's Tal Meckel, the head of media accreditation, a man who had inner-city press's belongings thrown out, a man who his office sends a denial of access that doesn't even give a reason. Now, he was not a bad guy. It's like most people at the UN. Is he really a bad guy? I don't know. But he's been taking money to do sleazy business for well on 10 years now. He's come out to stroke his media island. It's absolutely ghoulish. Look, it must be meaningful if we have these zombie state media. Maybe we can get Cameroon media out here. Yes, media accreditation. He now works for Melissa Fleming. Now let's see. We've got some pretty dapper gentlemen. Is that a guard? Is that Volkan Bozkir? The Turk? The Turk with no disclosure? No, I don't think so. Volkan's probably already in. Volkan's maybe he's got his donation bag open. Could it be Volkan? Volkan has white hair. But I think the guy behind him is in fact Kazakhstan's ambassador. He seems to have a file. He's a perfectly nice guy. Check it out. Absolute sleaze. A total joke. I think we're going to have a selfie. We're going to have a photograph of Press Island. The ship of fools. Yes, it's true. You should apply. I did. September 5th. I said, and just by the way, you can check it out online. Even while covering the courthouse, 10 stories a day. I'm writing 5 a day about the UN, which is more than any one of these white tent wankers. But that's not what the UN is looking for. They're not actually looking for anyone to do journalism. He's taking a picture. We may soon see this. We'll see this on the Malu thing. It reflects so well on you to have terrible journalists throwing other people out. Get ready. Panorama, brother. It's a shame. It's really a shame. They take perfectly well-meaning people and turn them into zombies. Zombies, freaks, and censors. It's terrible. I don't mind Tal Meckel. He was a nice guy at one time. Censoring the press, though, is not a way to make your living. It's a shame. It's an absolute shame. And the biggest shame of all is that they haven't found a way to even say, like, online briefings. Basically, it's like being a concentration camp guard. I'm sorry to say it. It's a sad day. Not the worst guy in the world, not the best. He's going to film again. Yeah, call NYPD. NYPD. I went to NYPD when Ronald Dobbins, the guard, broke my computer and threw me out as I covered the budget. $5 billion budget, one journalist covering it, and they send some bozo. Look at these guards. These guards with their hanging bellies, no, they don't have vessel permits. These guys couldn't pass the background check. Tom Eckel got a fluffer for Al Jazeera. Get ready, fluffer for Al Jazeera. Very terrible. So Trump is going to speak at a certain point, and I'd like to be at a more solid location than here across from Press Island in order to cover it. So yesterday you can find my review, Inner City Press's review of UN 75, the birthday party for an organization turned into Pedophile Island by Antonio Guterres. Now, some people think it's controversial to even talk about that, but the UN really does it. They really have peacekeepers that commit child rapes. They list it themselves. They just withhold all the information about it. Antonio Guterres is a ghoulish. I guess you can't get through there. Look, they've got the diplomats walking in the street. That's why yesterday, from the location right over there, we had Antigua and Barbuda. The successor. Look, the same faces telling the same lies about an organization ever in more decline. The BBC supporter of John Holmes and genocide against Tamils. The Qatari-funded blowhard. The Israeli, I'm sorry to say it, the Israeli guard of Press Pedophile Island. Who's he greeting? Some big shot journalists are coming in. He's talking to the guards. Watch out. Inner City Press might make a mad rush to cover the empty hall of shame. The hall of shame of Antonio Guterres. The most disgusting, decrepit, censoring Secretary General ever. Yes, it's true. You can see it. You can see this joke of a location. We're going to head downtown. Now, what happened yesterday on the UN beat? What happened? Well, forget the UN beat. On the courthouse beat at EDNY in Brooklyn, what we can tell you is this. The Chinese consulate, just down the street here, 1st Avenue and 35th Street, has New York City police officer spying on Tibetans in New York. It's true. His name is Angwang, and he's in the MCC, or MDC. I don't know which jail he was taken to. He was not released because he would immediately escape the country. And you're going to have President Xi talking about multilateralism. It's not multilateralism to infiltrate another country's police department to spy on your opponents and then torture their... Al Jazeera Arabic. You see, Al Jazeera has a number of offices. They have 3 offices in the UN because money talks, and Guterres loves it. They supported his coronation. BBC, smiling. Smile for the camera. Lie about the Tamils. Disgusting. All right, then. We'll end it with a stand-up. I think I'm going to get downtown. I think I'll go downtown. It's been a single unbroken stream here, in front of the United Nations, where corruption reigns and Antonio Guterres is destroying what remains of multilateralism. Okay, here we are, Inner City Press. We're heading to the Southern District of New York courthouse. Should be able to cover Trump's speech in about 10 minutes. Biking here from the UN, which we're banned from by corrupt Antonio Guterres, heard his speech. Almost had to pull to the side of the road on my bike to vomit because everything that he said is a lie. Everything that he said is a lie. He said he's for peace, but he's stoked conflict in Cameroon by supporting a dictator in exchange for a budget committee favor. He said he cared about women when he not only took the job of Secretary General when everyone said it was a women's turn, but he's covered up the rapes of women and girls all over the world. He talked about freedom and wanting to have input when he banned the press that dared question him on his corrupt links to the China Energy Fund Committee. Antonio Guterres is corrupt and should be impeached. This speaks for itself. There's many other things to be said. Inner City Press covers the UN, and I'm banned from going into it while he pontificates about democracy and hearing critics in the world we want. The world he wants is one where he can steal your money to live in Lisbon and cover up rapes and probably, okay, we're going in. But I would have live tweeted it, but maybe it would have been too much because Antonio Guterres is a corrupt sleazeball. Okay, here we are. We're back. Inner City Press. We've covered a number of cases down at the courthouse, but we've come back to the sleaze hole of the United Nations. Look, Look, the same guy from Al Jazeera pacing around in front. But in the interim, we've heard a number of speeches. We heard, Antonio Guterres is totally corrupt. Forget that. Full of lies. Full of lies, we wrote a story. Trump went short, 6 minutes, but he definitely laid some gloves on the China virus and told people, to be for your people the way I'm for my people. This was followed by Xi with a longer, kind of drabber speech, but he did talk about John Quixote, so that was interesting. Then you had Hassan Rouhani of Iran. Hassan Rouhani of Iran analogized his country to George Floyd. Yes, it's true. With the sanctions or the knee on his neck, I don't know. They killed a wrestler, didn't they? I don't know. They executed a wrestler for protest? I think they did. This was followed, just as we left, by France. Mr. Emmanuel Macron, pontificating about his deep caring, saying they're only in the soil of Mali and other soiled lands. That's how they translated it. Look at these overprivileged sleazebags in their cars, running over children with full impunity. Drivers, I think, c'est le français, hein? DJD, man, c'est le français, c'est Nicolas de Rivière. So he introduced Macron. Macron's speech didn't mention Cameroon, of course, at least that I know of. I had to split. We're going to stay on the case here. This is an absolute dead zone here. It used to be in the past you couldn't actually drive here. Now you can park a bike here and watch the fake news. I hate to say it. I'm willing to. I don't use that phrase much, and I don't use it, but I use it advisedly here. There's nothing inside. There's absolutely no reason to be doing these stand-ups. It's a total joke and a fraud. There was also the Emir of Qatar. Yes, there was the Emir of Qatar, who's the paymaster of Al Jazeera, which got inner-city press, working with Stefan Dujarric, booted out of the UN. You see, we were on the 3rd floor over there in the big building. They'd already ousted us from our office. See, Ban Ki-moon didn't like inner-city press either, but he didn't oust it. Took Antonio Guterres, absolutely corrupt, to do it. And he did it with the help of this gentleman in a suit. That was a small part of it. He's a small man, so that's the biggest part he could play of it. But that was a part of it. You see, there was a secret briefing. There was a spoon-fed briefing by Dujarric of this guy, pontificating. See, because the UN is nothing but a quote machine. Not that the quotes are interesting, but people want them. Anyway, while we're here, because we'll continue to focus on the speeches later this afternoon. Let's see who's coming in and out of this sleaze hole. Okay, now look, who can get inside? Xinhua, Chinese state media. Who can get inside? Masood Haider, drunken Pakistani journalist. Who can get inside? Well, any number. 90-year-old retirees. Yes. Who can't get inside? Inner city press. Of course, we write stories. Wait, is this the guy from AFP? C'est le petit mensonge, as they call her? Je crois que si, c'est le petit mensonge. Il s'en va. Comment s'appelle ce genre? I don't know, because he never asked any questions. You see, journalists are mice at the UN, and that's just how Big Cat Tony, Big Fat Tony likes it. Now, that gate's been closed since March, but now I was thrown out through that gate. Guys toting machine guns. You can find it on YouTube. It was June 2018. This was followed by July 3rd through the parking garage. Yes, it's true. There, the U.S. mission. Now, given that Rouhani, the things that he said about the United States, will there be a right to reply? I don't know. Anyway, we're going back. We'll probably cover some features this afternoon, as well as some cases. There's a case at the SDNY about an antiquities dealer indicted, and he's supposed to be presented. So we'll be trying to cover that as well. Here we are, inner-city press covering the UN without a single bit of assistance and nothing but hindrance from Antonio Guterres, the corrupt censor. Yes, it's true. Antonio Guterres should be impeached, indicted, arrested, and detained. Egypt's al-Sisi speaking by pre-recorded statement in the UN General Assembly Hall. He's a dictator. And in the United Nations, inner-city press was thrown out of its office, which was given to an Egyptian retiree who worked for Akbar al-Yam. Her name was Sana Youssef. Egypt, locking up all of its opponents, is a perfect partner for Antonio Guterres, the most corrupt and censorious Secretary General in history. Okay, here we are. Here we are. United Nations. Now yesterday, in yesterday's edition, hang on, this could be a little jumpy, but let's check it out. In yesterday, President Xi of China spoke much longer. And after we wrote a story about it and asked a question to the Chinese ambassador, Mr. Zhang Jun, he blocked Inner City Press on Twitter. Now we have an idea that I'm going to launch actually in this format. Now that Twitter requires the labeling of accounts of P5, permanent 5 members of the Security Council like Mr. Zhang Jun, shouldn't it be the case that they're not allowed to block people? Under the same principle that was established in the Second Circuit, which is that public officials can't block people. Does that only apply under the U.S. First Amendment? Or does Mr. Zhang Jun, when asked about spying, have to let us in? Now look over here, Press Island, a bunch of fraudsters. Once again, the Al Jazeera guy. These guys are pretending something's going on inside, but it's just videotaped speeches by people like MBS of Saudi Arabia. It's disgusting. Okay, we're heading downtown. We're going to continue to cover this, though, but also a number of great and interesting cases. The UN is totally corrupt. Antonio Guterres should be indicted, arrested, and detained. And China must stop blocking Inner City Press. Okay, here we are, Inner City Press. We're leaving the Southern District of New York courthouse. We're leaving the Southern District of New York courthouse after covering more than 10 cases. Strangely, it seems that somebody is also being released at this time. The marshals were still around. We covered a case with many marshals today. U.S. versus Davis. U.S. versus Davis. And look, this is a great thing. So here we are, Inner City Press. We'll narrate it this way, but this is a heartwarming scene here at the courthouse. We've covered the case of Poker Stars founder Isaiah Scheinberg, given time served after being returned from Switzerland. We've covered the U.S. versus Davis case, but we've also covered the United Nations, the most corrupt, inhuman cesspool of sex trafficking defense under Antonio Guterres. Now look, this gentleman was released. He was given his stuff and someone picked him up. They have a car. This is probably a good story. I ran a video of a man named Michael Jones. He was a SoundCloud rapper, overcharged, significantly overcharged. Went through quite a bit of time. That's why the marshals were here. A man was being released here past 11 p.m. These are the heartwarming tales of the SDNY. Now tomorrow, inside the United Nations, in a briefing that Inner City Press is banned from by Melissa Fleming and Antonio Guterres and Stefan Dujarric, censors all. Mr. Mayaki of NYPD, the former president of Lithuania, they'll be doing it. They'll be pitching Facti while they're on notice. At least one of the two follows Inner City Press. They're on notice through an article that we wrote that they are benefiting and colluding with the censorship of Antonio Guterres. So what will they do? You see, and Guterres is corrupting the entire United Nations system. How can you be a diplomat when you can't handle yourself a single critic? Right? All over the world, people say Lukashenko must deal with his critics. Kim Jong-un, deal with your critics. Nicolas Maduro, deal with your critics. But the head of the UN can't handle a single journalist asking him about his finances, can only resort to violence and censorship, and is supported by overpaid, morally bankrupt Americans like Stefan Dujarric, American and French, Melissa Fleming, fully American, but with no respect for the First Amendment. Absolute ghoulish sleazebags. And so tomorrow we're going to cover that event. And we're not going to rest until these people who, in contravention of everything that the UN is supposed to stand for, freedom of the press, democracy, diplomacy, speaking with your critics, have chosen to use physical violence against an investigative press, they should be ousted. And we won't rest until they are. And we're restored to our ability to ask questions. Tomorrow's a litmus test. In everything that goes forward from this day on, with the investigative and critical press banned, is collusion, pure and simple. Vichy France. To be continued.
Anterior debe hacerse evitando burocracias excesivas e ineficientes.
This is Honduras'
Por ejemplo,
president,
al inicio de esta pandemia,
Juan
buscamos
Orlando
el
Hernandez.
acompañamiento del Programa de Naciones Unidas para lanzar que nos permitiera hacer de manera transparente transferencias económicas a las personas más necesitadas del país.
This
Pasado ya
General
varios
Assembly.
meses y a pesar
Inner city press is banned from entering the building or asking any question. Drug trial contribution by Honduras that he bragged about. And a four-person panel that Guterres sent down to Honduras to back up JOH. This president's brother is in jail not far from where I'm standing right now in the MCC. His sentencing has been put back multiple times. His co-defendants get extension after extension. What game is JOH playing? And what game is Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General? Narco Secretary General. What role is he playing? Why won't he answer any questions about this? Now, earlier in the speech, JOH, I think to try to suck up to the U.S. administration, talked about the WHO not having recommended masks. But he's a drug trafficker. I covered the trial. It's totally clear that he, like his brother, made money from moving massive amounts of drugs through Honduras with machine guns and in violent drug traffickers. It's a drug state. Loves it. But honestly, from my point of view at least, the problem goes further. The UN system is totally corrupt and supports leaders like this and bans the president. That's it. This is UN General Assembly 2020. The narco general of censorship, corruption, and crime.
¿A ustedes no les molesta?
Sí
¿A
me
ustedes no
molesta.
les incomoda en su conciencia que años
No puede
señor
hablar de
secretario
eso.
general,
Ayuda para mis crímenes.
las catástrofes naturales y las afectan nuestra economía y son problemas que no siempre es culpa de los pequeños,
Ayúdame
pero al afectar la
para
economía
seguir
financieros es justo que estos eventos y no castigar
This is
con
the
malas
UN.
calificaciones
Check it
a
out.
los países que son más
Investigar a
vulnerables
las
y
Naciones
pobres.
Unidas son
Deben de existir
corruptos.
formas diferenciadas de atención a sus necesidades y formas especiales de lograr de
Juan
nuestros acreedores
Orlando
internacionales,
Hernández
me refiero
y
a los
Antonio
organismos
Guterres
multilaterales
también.
de crédito, porque hasta este
Ojalá.
momento no han estado a la altura de esta colosal tragedia y ha habido una respuesta pobre a la necesidad de financiamiento, de moratorias, para atender el desplome de nuestras economías. Sido que no solo es de criticar, sino también de aportar una solución mundial, proponer de manera respetuosa que tecnología
All right. Inner City Press. We're leaving the Southern District of New York courthouse today, Thursday, September 24th. We've covered well over 10 cases, actually 15. But there's something I need to get off my chest. The day began here between 9:30 and 10:30 a.m. with Inner City Press posing questions to the International Monetary Fund via their online briefing. And we asked about China and Angola, as well as Costa Rica. But let's just focus on China. Now, just to focus on the IMF, their response was largely praising China and to say, ask China about their strong-arming Angola for oil concessions. It's difficult because the Chinese ambassador to the UN, Zhang Jun, blocks Inner City Press on Twitter. But again, all's fair. They're a country. They don't have to do it. What about the UN? How is it possible that the UN has a WebEx briefing, much lower tech, much sleazier, much more boring than the IMF, and doesn't allow Inner City Press to participate? Why is that? I know the UN pretty well. I write a lot of stories about it. It's just censorship. That's what I want to just. There's just no other answer. The only answer here. So today, September 24th, Inner City Press, with the password, no hacking, invited in. They were happy to see me ask questions of the IMF on WebEx about China, but the UN won't take those questions. In fact, they physically beat Inner City Press up, twisted its arm, and broke its computer. You know why? Because Antonio Guterres is in the pocket of China. He's a corrupt, rape-denying sleazeball, and he has a whole bunch of people around him that tell him lies. The emperor has no clothes, but that's not what Doña Luisa Ribeiro says. She wants to get paid to live the high life. It's not what Stefan Dujarric says. He lives in a penthouse concealing rapes. It's not what Melissa Fleming says. She's got the greatest thing in the world, public money to pay for podcasts that nobody wants to hear. These guys should all be ousted. Whether they should be arrested or not, I don't know. I personally feel that they're engaged in a sex trafficking conspiracy, but that's just my view. All I can say is that any member state and any UN official like Mr. Hochschild or anyone else that puts up with this double standard of censorship is corrupt, and there will be. It's not a question of mercy. To be continued. To be continued. As well as in here. Tomorrow we're doing something about Natalie Mayflower Edwards, the FinCEN whistleblower, of whom Inner City Press is the only media on earth actually seeking to unseal documents here in the SDNY. But of course, to the UN, they prefer drunken, retired Pakistanis in state media. To be continued. Okay, here we are. The United Nations. This is day 4 of the general debate. Right now, around 9 o'clock, Cameroon was supposed to speak. Paul Biya, well-known killer, long-time killer, supported by Antonio Guterres in exchange for budget committee favors. Somehow he's not on the list. Micronesia took over the spot. Who knows? Colonialism lives and reigns in the United Nations. So does censorship. Yesterday, we asked the IMF questions in their WebEx briefing. One of only 5 media asking questions. We asked about Angola, China. We were told to ask China, which is funny since the Chinese ambassador blocks us on Twitter. But anyway, we got answers. But the UN, no. Under Melissa Fleming, vanity podcaster, under Antonio Guterres, bribe-taking rape denier, and Stefan Dujarric, all-around, all-purpose utility infielder for corruption, rape, and sleaze, we're not even allowed to the online briefings. They don't have anybody to ask questions, but they don't care. They just don't care. So even Al Jazeera didn't come out to the fake tent today. Looks like it's dead and dying. The United Nations is a finished and disgusted organization being killed by Antonio Guterres. If he's not ousted soon, this organization is done.